In the previous tutorial, we talked about customizing a dashboard. Today, we're going to be working with a similar skill, which is customized reports. Both of these are inside the customization category here on the left side navigation. And when I click customization, I have the dashboards that we dealt with in our previous tutorial. And we also have custom reports, which is the subject of today's tutorial. Here is my end of year report for last year. I'm going to go into new custom report. And here is the dialog box for creating a new report. The title goes here. We'll use the title end of year 2018. You can have multiple tabs within your report. We'll just stick with one, but we will call this tab 2018. The three views are next: Explorer, Flat Table, and Map Overlay. Explorer gives you a line graph, and then below that graph gives you a table. Flat Table simply gives you a table, and a Map Overlay gives you a sense of where most of your traffic is coming from on a map. We're going to build an Explorer view report, but I will show you that same data in a flat table after that. This brings us to two terms we worked a lot with in our previous tutorial: metrics and dimensions. Remember that metrics are things that can be counted. They are quantifiable things like number of users, number of sessions, page views, bounce rates, and so on. These are generally columns when you're working in a table. Dimensions are attributes of your site or attributes of the end user. The city the end user comes from, what browser they're using, what device they're using, and so on. So let's build our metrics first, and we'll use several. You may remember in the dashboard, we were limited to 2 metrics, but here in the custom report, we can go a lot further out. Now, because this is my end of year report, I want to emphasize things that are working really well about my website. I don't have a huge number of users, though I will put that metric inside my report. But then I'm going to be emphasizing the things that work well for my site, that I have a large number of sessions, a large number of page views per session, a very high average time, average duration per session, and a really low bounce rate. So these are metrics I'm going to choose that make my site look good. So I'm going to go to add metric. Users is a really basic one, so we need to put that in there. And again, I recommend you don't scroll down, but rather search for these terms because there are so many possible dimensions in these reports. There's my first one. I'll click add metric, and I'll put number of sessions next. My next will be my average duration. Average session duration is right here. Page views per session, or pages per session. And then finally, my last metric will be bounce rate. Now again, you may recall from our previous tutorial, when working with a dashboard, we could only add 2 metrics, but we're able to add a lot more working with a report. Dimension drill downs will keep simple. I'm going to click dimension. I'm going to put in page. And we'll stick with that for now. Filter, I could filter out my results by things like browser, like device, but I will keep that off this for now. It's an optional field, and I will click save. Now here is the end report. Here is the end result of building that customized report. Notice I have my duration set for the last year. This is currently a daily graph, which has a few too many data points. So I'm going to even out this graph by going to my monthly data points. So there'll be only 12 bits in the graph. And below this are all my numbers. I can sort by any one of these metrics. This gives me because we're sorting currently by our first column, by users, and that is by default, it's going to sort by your first metric. These are my most popular pages in number of users. Here are the number of sessions by page, average session duration by page, pages per session by page, and bounce rates by page. And this lets my boss know, whoever's reading the report know, that we have a very large number of sessions, more than double the number of actual users, that our session duration is around 5 minutes, which is quite a bit longer than the average session duration for a CSU site. The number of pages per session is also quite large, and I have an almost unheard of bounce rate of 5.5%. I can add a secondary dimension on the fly here using the secondary dimension button just above my table. So I'll click secondary dimension. I'm going to put in device category, meaning whether it's desktop, whether it's a tablet, or whether it's mobile. And I now have that as a column in this report. And I can see that the vast majority of views on this site are via desktop. The front page gets some hits via mobile, and the contact page gets some hits via mobile. But essentially, my site is used as a desktop site. One last quick note before we move on. By default, this is sorting my data by my first metric that I've chosen, my users, but I can sort by any other category simply by clicking on it. So I can sort by sessions, I can sort by session duration, and so on. With that said, let's move on. We'll go back to custom reports, and I'll show you the same data as a flat table rather than as an Explorer view. So I could create an entire new report and put in the same metrics and the same dimensions. However, I can take the existing report as well, go to Actions, choose Edit, and then simply change from Explorer to Flat Table. And we'll go ahead and add a second dimension here because I think that's fairly important. That is the device category we had earlier. And then we'll click Save. And this is the same report, but not an Explorer view, so we don't have the graph above it.